I moved to the small town of Maplewood, Ohio, in late autumn. It's a quiet place with neat houses, identical fences, and empty streets after 9 in the evening. The neighbors are friendly, almost all of them. My house was between an elderly couple's house and a small beige 2-story house where a man in his 40s named David Harper lived. I met him on my first night there when I was unloading boxes for my car. He came out onto the porch, waved, and offered to help. David was polite, but there was something about his gaze that seemed lingering, too lingering. He didn't just look at my face, he seemed to be memorizing every detail. In the evenings, when I went out into the garden, there was almost never any light or music coming from his house. Sometimes, though, I saw him loading something into the trunk of his old van late at night. But I chalked it up to his strange work schedule. A week passed. Around 2 in the morning, I was awakened by a strange sound, something like a dull thud and the creaking of metal. I went to the window and saw David rummaging through the trunk of his van in his yard. He quickly looked around, took out something long wrapped in tarpaulin, and dragged it toward the garage. The next day, I asked him what he was doing at night. He smiled and said, "Oh, I'm just doing some carpentry. You know, saws, wood, noise. It's better to do it when you're not disturbing anyone." But I didn't smell any wood or sawdust. On Friday, the local news showed a photo of the missing girl. The reporter said she was last seen near a gas station a few miles from my neighborhood. I caught a glimpse of David glancing at the TV screen in my living room as he walked past my house. He paused for a second, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. That night, I heard his van again, driving off into the darkness. He didn't return until morning. A couple of days later, I was walking past his house and noticed that the garage door was ajar. There was a dim light inside. Curiosity got the better of me. I peeked inside and immediately smelled a heavy, sweetish odor. Not like garbage, not like meat from the store. I had smelled this odor once in the Army, when our squad stumbled upon an old abandoned bunker. The smell of a rotting body. I didn't have time to see anything. David suddenly appeared in the doorway, as if he had grown out of the darkness. He looked at me and said quietly, "Lost?" I made up some excuse and left. But inside me, a clear feeling had already taken hold. He was involved in something terrible. It all happened in one night. Around 3 in the morning, I heard someone fiddling with my back door. I looked out the window and saw David. A large kitchen knife glinted in his hand. I rushed to the phone, but it didn't ring. The cord had been cut. I managed to slam the lock on the back door just as he started pushing against it with his shoulder. My heart was pounding so hard that I could hardly hear anything but my own pulse. And then I heard him whisper from the darkness, "I always choose my neighbors. Fresh." That night, I miraculously survived by hiding in the attic until the police arrived. They found the remains of 3 missing people in his garage, and all of them had been partially eaten. I live in a small town in North Carolina, on the outskirts, where houses are far apart, And in the evenings, it is so quiet that you can hear the wood crackling in the fence. The street is lit by only two old streetlights, and one of them has been flickering for a long time, as if it is struggling to make it through the night. I work in an auto repair shop and come home late. One day in early October, on my way home, I noticed a man standing outside a neighbor's house. He was wearing a long coat and seemed to be looking directly at me. I couldn't make out his face, only his silhouette and a long shadow on the sidewalk. I thought he was one of my neighbor's guests and didn't think much of it. But when I turned around to open the door, he was still standing in the same place, as if waiting for me to go inside. 2 days later, it happened again, but this time it was different. I was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and listening to the radio, when I heard a quiet, barely audible knock on the door. Not a ring, a knock. I went to the peephole. No one there. I thought the kids were playing a joke. But when I opened the door to check, I saw out of the corner of my eye someone quickly disappearing around the corner of the house. I didn't go outside, but I had a strange feeling. This person definitely didn't want me to see his face. The week passed quietly, but then things took a turn for the worse. In the morning, on my way to work, I found a note under the doormat. I know when you sleep. I thought it was someone's silly prank, but in the evening, there was a second note under the doormat. I'll be back tonight. I started double-checking the locks and leaving the light on in the hallway at night. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to a strange sound, like a scraping noise. At first, I thought it was a tree near the house, but then I realized the sound was coming from the kitchen. When I quietly approached, I saw through the window that it was the same man in a coat, standing right up against the glass and looking inside. He didn't move or blink. He just stared. I froze, then rushed to the phone to call the police. But when I returned to the window, he was gone. Only a palm print remained on the glass. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with a knife in my hands, listening to every sound. Around 4 in the morning, I heard the same knock. I went to the door and shouted for him to go away, but in response, I heard a quiet, drawn-out voice say, "I'm already inside." At that moment, I heard footsteps behind me in the darkness of the hallway. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked these stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. This way, you will support the creation of new, realistic, and interesting stories. See you in the next videos, and be careful.